Hey guys, this is Jason with brewgr.com, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make an all-grain session IPA. If you're an extract brewer thinking about making the jump to all-grain, I'm going to say go for it. It's really easy to do. There's only a few extra pieces of gear that you are going to need. You probably already have some kind of boil kettle, brew kettle. You are going to need a bigger one. You're going to need one that holds about 5 or 6 gallons. I don't know if this one would be big enough. I have a kegel that I use, and then you're also going to need some kind of a mash tun, whether it's a cooler or one of these round coolers. I got this from Home Depot. There's notes on our blog on how to make one of these, instructions. This was about $80. So a brew kettle and a mash tun, and you can all grain using this method. So I'm going to show you how I do it. I'll go along. There's some extra things that I do, but I'll make sure to mention what things you have to do, what things you don't have to do. And I'll try to make it as fast as I can. And let's get going. So the recipe I'm going to be brewing is, I actually got this from user Tony. I got to actually try this session IPA and it was magnificent. So it's about 11 pounds of grain, 10 pounds 2-row, 0.6 crystal 20, and 0.4 flaked oats. Here's the hop profile that we will be using. And White Labs 001, a little Irish moss, some yeast nutrient, and that's it. So first thing I did on brewgr.com is I created a brew session, and you're going to want to do this so that you can know how much water you're going to need to mash with. So my mash thickness of 1.3 quarts per pound, I am going to need a mash strike volume of 3.83 gallons, and I want my strike temperature 160 degrees. So 3.83 gallons at 160 degrees. Let's do that. Okay, so I run hot water off the tap through a charcoal filter because I want to get out any chlorine in the water. So bring that up to 3.83 and then we'll bring it to 160 degrees. Okay, so I got my 3 gallons. 1, 2, 3.83 approximately. Use this stick. This is also on our blog, how to make one of these. And I also heat up a gallon of water. I get this boiling, and this is going to be used to preheat my mash tun. I got a gallon of boiling water. I'm going to dump that in the mash tun. Make sure your valve's closed. And that's going to just preheat this. I'm also checking my grain temperature to put that into brewgr.com to make sure that I get the correct strike water temperature. Okay, so I'm going to try to explain something. I think writing it out helps me and will maybe help you understand it. So when you're mashing, there are different enzymes that get produced. Basically, the starches get converted to different types of sugars. That is a way to say it. One is beta amylase and alpha amylase. And when you're mashing at 140 degrees to 149 degrees, you're going to produce more beta amylase. When you're mashing at higher temperature, you're going to get more alpha amylase. The beta amylase, the yeast like to eat. So, like a yeast, they really like these things. They just gobble them up. The alpha amylase, they don't eat those so well or convert them as well. So these, they're not going to eat as many of these. So they're going to eat these slower or at a different, I don't exactly understand it, but they convert that, they eat them differently. So in this scenario, you're going to have a much drier beer. There's going to be less sweetness in your beer because the yeast are going to convert that to alcohol and carbon dioxide. When you have a wort that has more alpha amylase in it, the yeast doesn't convert as much of that to sugar. So you're going to get the yeast doesn't convert as much of that to alcohol, so you're going to have a much sweeter beer. There's going to be a lot more of these sugars left in your beer, and it's going to be a sweeter beer. With this session IPA, we want it very dry. We're on the high end here. I've never mashed much lower than 149, 148, but I guess if you wanted a really dry beer, you could go all the way down to 140. So That's beta amylase and alpha amylase, and why your mash temperature is so important to your beer. And this is something that you get to do with by mashing and not using extract. Extracts are usually on the higher scale here, so they usually tend to produce a much sweeter beer. It's difficult to get an extract beer very dry. So that's what is really fun about all grain brewing. Okay, I got my strike water to 159 and I dumped out my preheat water. So I'm going to add my strike water to my mash tun. Make sure the valve's closed, which it's not. Ah! Okay, my strike water is 159. I dumped out my preheat water. I'm going to dump the strike water into the mash tun. So there's 3.83 gallons of water at 159 degrees. Now it's time to add the grain. Add my 11 pounds of grain to the strike water. I'm just going to take and dump this in. You should stir it as you're adding it. You don't want any dough balls, it's called. This is doughing in. Oh, that smells good. I just dump it in. If you had another person, it would make it easier to stir while you're adding. Make sure you stir it well. Make sure there are no dough balls anywhere, clumps of dough. Okay. Check your temperature. This is what you want your mash temperature to be. I want to mash this at 149. So I put some towels over the lid to help with insulation, and I'm going to let this mash for 60 minutes at 149. So we have to sparge, and what that means is to rinse the grain or wash the grain. So we put our grain in with the water, and the starches were converted to sugars. We drain those out, and now you have all this grain in your mash tun. And there's a lot of sugars that are stuck here to that grain, and we need to wash that off. So what we do is we're just going to take and dump about 3 gallons of hot water, 185 degrees, and that's going to bring this temperature to right around 169. You don't want to get this over 170. You're going to extract a lot of tannins and off flavors. So we're going to put in 185 degree water. It's going to bring this up to 169. We're going to stir it, and we're going to wash all those little sugars off there. Then we're going to do it again. Same thing. Another about 3 gallons. Depends on your setup and recipe. Dump that in. Wash these sugars off and drain them out into our brew kettle. And that's sparging. Brewgr.com, I was able to calculate my sparge volume at 6.13 gallons. Another way to do that is, let's say you collect 2 gallons from your first runnings, and you know you need 6 gallons. You just add 4 more gallons of water. So it's batch sparging simplifies a lot of the process. Fly sparging is the other way to go, and that's where you trickle the water over the grain bed, washing it off slowly. You have to worry about things like your pH balance, and it's a little more complicated. You need a little bit more equipment. You need a gravity system to be able to run the water down over the grain. So batch sparging takes a lot of that complexity out and really simplifies the process. You don't get the same efficiency, meaning that you are not going to convert as much sugar, but you just add some more grain. So you need to spend a few more dollars in grain to get the same efficiency, to get the same gravity. So 6.13 gallons of sparge water. I'm going to split that up into 2 sparges. So I'm going to rinse the grain off with 3 gallons, and then I'm going to rinse the grain off again with 3 gallons. So let's go heat up 6.13 gallons. Okay, so here's my 6 gallons of sparge water that I'm going to heat this to 185 degrees. Okay, while the mash is going, I'm going to get the brew kettle ready. It's already washed. I just need to rinse it out. So the mash is done. I just checked the temperature, 149 degrees, so I didn't lose any heat at all. That's good. So now I'm going to get my first runnings. So the first thing we do is Vorloff. And what this means is that you collect, you kind of set the grain bed, and you're filtering the water through the grain a couple times. So I'm going to fill this bucket with the runnings here. and I just turn this on really slow as to not get a stuck mash. If you just crank it on, it's just going to get stuck. So as you can see, when it first comes out here, you actually can't see. So as you can see, the first runnings here have a lot of grain in them. So I'm going to let this run about 1 gallon. I'll run 1 gallon back through the grain. Okay, so I filled this almost a gallon and it's starting to run clear. So I'm going to run this into my brew kettle. Okay, make sure your brew kettle is closed. I use just a little strainer as to so I don't disrupt the grain bed. So I'm just going to pour this back over. So here I'm collecting my first runnings. You can see it's running pretty clear now into the brew kettle. Brewgr.com says I should collect, I think it was about 2 gallons. Here's the mash. Hopefully there are not channels. It looks like it's all run into one spot. You want it to evenly fall down through the grain, but sometimes that doesn't happen. So I've got my sparge water over here. Should be 185. 185.4, perfect. So I'm going to put 3 gallons of that into my mash. Add 3 gallons of sparge water to my mash. This is 185 degrees. Stir that really good. So now we're washing all those sugars off the grain. Make sure that you Vorloff again. So we're going to open this slowly, set the grain bed again. And go ahead and I've got about 5 gallons, so I'm going to go ahead and turn on my burner on the brew kettle. So we can start heating up that water from the boil. I'm going to get about 5.5 gallons here, and I want 8. So I'm only going to have to add 2.5 gallons of sparge water to bring that up to 8. Stir it again, really good. Okay, stirred good. Now I'm going to Vorloff again. Okay, third sparge is almost done. My thermometer heats up to, so I don't really know how much I get, but it should be about 8 gallons. Okay, so that's it. The mash is done. And now if you are an extract brewer, the steps from here on out are exactly the same. So that's it. This is now just like as if you had heated up water and added an extract. You now have your wort. So I'm going to take and dump this, wash it out. Make sure you get a gravity reading here. Oh, that's hot. Too hot for a hydrometer unless you have bricks or whatever they're called. So put it in the freezer to let it cool down. Okay, next I'm going to get my hops ready. What I do is I take a piece of tin foil and put it on something like this to make a little hop holder. Zero out my scale. This is going to be Magnum to start. This is 15.2 alpha acid percent. Whoops. Ah, smells good. Okay, so I'm doing 1.2 ounces. Okay, when you start to get close to boil, make sure you're keeping an eye on it because you do not want this to boil over. Okay, it's just starting to boil. I'm going to go ahead and add my hops. This will help with the hop break. Or not. Oh, look at that green mush. Okay, I need to start my timer. Probably turn down the heat a little. We've got about 10 minutes left in the boil, so I went ahead and inserted my wort chiller, and I'm also going to add my yeast nutrient and Irish moss. So while this is finishing my wort chiller, I actually run off of a pump that I stick in this cooler of water. And then I run this end into my washing machine in there and fill up one load of laundry, and then I'll recycle this in using ice water in the cooler. I'll show you that later. Okay, 60 minutes. I turn the heat up. I am going to throw the lid on. Well, actually I need to do my top additions. So let's cool off just a bit. Turn on my wort chiller. Make sure it's not filling my laundry room. Okay, so wort chiller's on. Starting to go. Cold water in, hot water out. And go ahead and add my hops. 2 ounces of Amarillo. 2 ounces of Citra. Ah, that smells good. And stir that up. Put the lid on. I have a little cutout here for my chiller. And that's it. Let it cool. It'll take about 20 minutes. Left my whatever this is called in the freezer, so it's a little, has some ice chunks in there. So I can't take a hydrometer reading yet, but just have to let it warm up a little bit. We want it about 70 degrees or 60. I think 60 is what a hydrometer is calibrated at. So make sure that when you take your hydrometer reading, you use you can use brewgr.com has a hydrometer correction calculator. So use that to put in the temperature of your wort, and it'll correct your hydrometer reading, because most hydrometers are set to read at 60 degrees. So now my washing machine's almost full, so now I need to recirculate the immersion chiller. So here's how my recirculating wort chiller works. So the pump pumps the cold water in around the coil, and then it comes back out, goes into back in there, gets cold again, and I do this after it gets down to about 80 degrees with the tap, and then I do this to go the next 10 or 20 degrees. My wort's chilling. I'm going to use my Odophor and sterilize or sanitize my fermenter. After I sanitize, I dump the sanitizer into a bucket, and then I use that for some of the other stuff I need to sanitize, like my airlock and my blow-off tube and stuff like that. It's done chilling down to 70 degrees. I took the wort chiller out and moved it over to this table. I stirred it good so that it gets a whirlpool effect. I brewed a little more beer because I'm going to lose quite a bit down here. I don't want to get any hop debris in this, so I'm going to I can turn this so the dip's tube's straight out as opposed to down. So I'm going to keep it straight so that all the hop debris is down below it. I sprayed this with starch sand so it's sanitized. And put that on there. This up. Okay, I'm going to turn this a little bit so my dip tube's up. I'll probably get some debris right off the bat. Okay, it's starting to get dirty. I'm going to stop it there. Okay, now I'm going to try to oxygenate. I don't have a oxygen tank with a tube on it, so I just shake like this for about 5 minutes and try to get as much of that air in the wort so the oxygen, or so the yeast is healthier. Okay, next it's time to pitch the yeast. So I'm going to first take a hydrometer reading so I can get my original gravity. Hopefully you can see this. Put my yeast in. It has started. I did a yeast starter yesterday. This was with wheat, dry malt extract, and it's White Labs 001. Pitch the yeast, put the lid back on, and I'm going to shake it again. Okay, I put this, just tape this temperature probe to the side of the fermenter. Put this on to insulate it a little bit, and then put it up against the wall. Okay, so my pre-boil gravity was 1043, 1044 about, which is way more than I was hoping for. So had I known that, I could have adjusted my hops, which I could have done. I needed to add more. I think because of that double batch sparge, I got much better efficiency than I normally do. So final gravity is 1052, 1053. So that's it. Not too complicated, a little time consuming, but it was fun. Thanks for watching. If you have any comments or suggestions, please leave them below in the comments section. And make sure you visit brewgr.com. Thanks.